Retro gaming is more popular now than it ever has been, and this is great for the community, with more and more retro gaming content being created every single day. However, the downside to that is that retro gaming is becoming a very expensive hobby. However, not all retro game collecting requires deep pockets. If you find the right console at the right time, you can find yourself with a massive retro gaming haul, all for less than the price of a current gen release. Kick off your shoes and relax your socks while we discuss the best retro game console to collect for in 2020. When I first started retro game collecting, one of the things I was most excited about was being able to get loads and loads of the best video games ever made for a small amount of money. However, when I started to look at some of the cartridges from the 8-bit and 16-bit era, I was actually really surprised with how expensive they actually were. Last year I discussed how the PlayStation 2 was the best console to collect for in 2019. Because of its large and wide selection of amazing video games, all which can be picked up for a really low price. A lot of them even being around about the £1 mark. To this day, the PlayStation 2 continues to be a fantastic console to collect for, which is able to cover tastes for all retro gamers, from the cheap and cheerful great games to the really expensive super rare games. However, recently I have come across my new favourite console to collect for, and I would go so far as to say that it is the best retro game console to collect for in 2020. This retro gaming console is not the PlayStation 1, however it is taking me back to those PS1 days of buying games. The days where I would walk into a video game store and spend hours just going through the PlayStation 1 library. The thing about the games back then is that the developers seemed to take more chances, and because of that we had a lot of weird and wonderful titles available for the PlayStation 1. Many of those weird and wonderful titles also weren't overly publicised, so it was really exciting to just take a chance on them. Now this video game console that I am referring to gives me that very same experience to this day. I'm able to walk into my local retro video game store and know that I'll just come across a game that I've never seen or heard before for this console. A game that could be trash, or it could be the next hidden gem. You see, one of the downsides for me when it comes to retro game hunting these days is that most of the games are pretty well known, and most of the hidden gems aren't really that hidden anymore. But this console somehow manages to keep that alive for me. I think a large part of that is down to the fact that although this console was a huge commercial success, it wasn't really very popular amongst hardcore gamers. It's only really now that retro gamers are starting to really understand the charm and appeal of this console. And by now, I think you know which console I'm referring to. That's right, the Nintendo Wii. You see, like a lot of us out there, when the Nintendo Wii first came out, I kind of brushed it off as a bit of a gimmick console, something to attract more of a casual gamer rather than a fully fledged gaming console in itself. However, recently I've been playing a lot of the Nintendo Wii along with my 4-year-old son, because the controls are easy for him to pick up and a lot of the games are a lot more approachable. But what really surprised me when I started looking into the Wii game library is just how vast the library is. For every gimmicky cooking or fitness game, there's another brilliant and exciting game to be found. You've got your Nintendo exclusives with the likes of Pokemon, Donkey Kong, Super Mario, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, Zelda, and that's just to name a few. But on top of that, you've got other amazing games like Mad World, Excite Truck, Batman Brave and the Bold, Red Steel, and even No More Heroes. These are all games that are exclusive to the Nintendo Wii, but also very unique experiences. But beyond the Nintendo exclusives and all the unique games, there is one feature that sets the Nintendo Wii apart from all of its competition. It remains one of the best consoles for all you light gun fans out there. You see, the light gun genre was initially made possible due to the CRT TV technology at the time. As we moved away from CRT TVs and moved to the flat screen technology, this no longer supported the technology we needed for light gun games. Therefore, with the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and beyond, we started to see the decline in light gun games. However, thanks to the Nintendo Wii's use of a light bar, it's possible to create a light gun experience using the Wiimote. This led to a huge range of light gun games appearing from the Nintendo Wii, with games ranging from just the outright cheesy to the absolutely superb. With the Wii, you have access to fantastic light gun games like House of the Dead 2 and 3, Dead Space Extraction, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, and it remains the only console you can play House of the Dead Overkill on. And what's best is the attachments to turn your Wiimote into a light gun come at just around about the 50p to the £1 range. This is way cheaper than trying to get your hands on a GunCon 3. Now the games on average or at their cheapest aren't as cheap as the PlayStation 2. However, you're going to find a lot of great games and quality IP that you just cannot find on any other console. But do you know what's even better than that? The Nintendo Wii is not just limited to the Nintendo Wii Games library. You also have access to the entire GameCube library too. You see, the Nintendo Wii is fully backwards compatible with the GameCube library of games. And that gives you access to the only Metal Gear Solid remake to date, the Twin Snakes. I mention this because, as many of you may already know, Metal Gear Solid is my favourite video game of all time. And Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes is actually the very first GameCube game that I ever played, and it so happened to be on the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii is at that sweet spot right now where most collectors aren't really focusing on it, meaning that most games can still be picked up for a pretty reasonable price. However, like pretty much all Nintendo consoles out there, I'm sure it won't be long before the price of the Wii and the Wii Games starts to rise. And it might even end up becoming the next GameCube. Right now I'm having an absolute blast collecting for the Nintendo Wii and finding all of these new gaming experiences. Let me know what your thoughts are of the Nintendo Wii and if you agree that it is the best retro game console to collect for in 2020. If you want to show your support for Chronik Spartan games, then you can head on over to chronicspartan.com and check out our indie games. You can become a Chronik Spartan patron at patreon.com, or you can kick off your shoes and relax your socks with some Chronik Spartan merch from tpublic.com. All links are in the description below. But the simplest and easiest way to show your support is to just hit that subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in.